Hey cinephiles. It's time for another annual tradition of mine wherein I rank all of the Best Picture nominees, counting down to the very best. I will also briefly review each film along the way. For the first time in over a decade, the Academy guaranteed 10 nominees, so we've got a maxed out category to contend with. Thankfully, all 10 films are available now on streaming or on demand, so you can see all of these for yourself. As with all my lists on Cineflect, this is my personal ranking. I'm sure your list looks different, and so, as always, I invite you to share your own ranking in the comments below. Alright, let's start the countdown. Number 10, Don't Look Up. This placement won't surprise anyone who saw my video breaking down all of the Oscar nominations, in which I made my resentment of this film loud and clear. To reiterate, I really did not care for Don't Look Up, a sci-fi farce following two astronomers played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, who embark on a media tour to warn mankind of an approaching comet when the White House fails to act. Before this, I didn't get all of the Adam McKay hate. I loved The Big Short, I even liked Vice, which was pretty divisive at the time, but it wasn't until Don't Look Up that I understood his detractors, as this film showcases his worst tendencies as a filmmaker: overwritten, overlong, lack of focus, and a crippling dependency on stock footage, all of which makes its nomination for film editing in particular all the more egregious.
I have news for you. It's already a complete disaster.
Furthermore, as a painfully simple satire, the jokes were landing well below 10% for me. Given my genuine anticipation and the potential and pedigree of the ensemble cast, Don't Look Up was a big disappointment, and honestly one of the worst films I saw in 2021, which makes it easily my least favorite of these Best Picture nominees. Number 9, Belfast. This is writer-director Kenneth Branagh's coming-of-age film centered on a working-class family living in Northern Ireland's capital in 1969 at the onset of the Troubles. As it turns out, I am mostly immune to this film's charms. Tonally, I thought it made for a rather strange dramedy. I don't care for precocious children, in films or in life, and this is as severe a case of that as I've ever seen.
And I watched every night too that they were up there. And how did I never see Mike Collins in the mothership doing his orbit? Surely you would have seen the sheep of Columbus against the light of the moon.
I thought the black and white cinematography contributed very little, and I found out I'm not a Van Morrison fan. When it first came out, you may have seen people calling this Kenneth Branagh's Roma, which in hindsight seems entirely overblown. It certainly doesn't do Belfast any favors to compare it to Alfonso Cuarón's brilliant film. In short, this is not my cup of tea, but I'm happy for you if it's yours, though I'll admit there are some good performances here. Karen Hines and Dame Judi Dench, both of whom are nominated, though I thought Katrina Balfe was the standout. And that's really all I have to say about Belfast. Okay, from here on out, these films range from good to great to, dare I say, masterpiece. Let's start with the good. Number 8, King Richard. This charts how Venus and Serena Williams took the tennis world by storm, as seen through the eyes of their tough but visionary father.
You might just have the next Michael Jordan.
Oh no, brother man. I got me the next too.
While this perspective alters the typical sports biopic formula, it still fundamentally feels cut from the same jersey. The highlight here are the performances from Will Smith and Anjanou Ellis, especially when their parenting strategies come to a head. They are each nominated, and deservingly so. I do have reservations over a film when the actual people depicted have a hand in the project. Both Venus and Serena are executive producers on the film. To what degree that compromises the narrative is debatable, but I think it's important to acknowledge nonetheless. Still, on or off the court, this is an inspiring film, and Richard Williams makes for a fascinating character study. Number 7, CODA. That stands for Child of Deaf Adults, which defines Ruby's place as the only hearing member of her deaf family. As a high school senior, she's torn between helping her family's struggling fishing business or pursuing her love of music. The film checks so many boxes on the Sundance indie dramedy checklist that it feels like it was designed in a lab. It's amazing then, as trope-infested as CODA is, that it managed to win me over again and again and again. Seriously, this moved me to tears no less than 3 times in the last half hour. As familiar as its components appear, it's the characterization of every member of the Rossi family and the winsome performances behind each of them that breathe so much life into the film. Its matter-of-fact depiction of life with a disability assures the audience that they are in good hands. Number 6, Nightmare Alley. This was the biggest surprise of this year's Best Picture nominees, and a pleasant one at that. The latest from monster lover Guillermo del Toro is actually his first film free of the supernatural. It follows a carny with a mysterious past, played with remarkable restraint by Bradley Cooper, who decides to take his psychic sideshow to the city, entering a dangerous world of powerful players. This is a grandiose and grotesque film noir, the second adaptation of William Lindsay Gresham's novel of the same name, but a significant improvement on Edmund Golding's 1947 film, which felt hopelessly watered down by the production code of its time. Conversely, Del Toro's Nightmare Alley lives up to its name, full of menacing set design, a cast of malicious characters, and one of the best endings of the year. Number 5, Licorice Pizza. The latest from writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson is a love letter to coming of age in the San Fernando Valley of the 1970s. First-time actors Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim are terrific in the lead roles, opposite a wildly entertaining supporting cast in a series of misadventures. While the subject matter and episodic nature gives the film a fleeting impression and feels like a minor entry in Anderson's greater filmography, it's overflowing with the character interactions and filmmaking flourishes that make PTA one of my favorite filmmakers working today.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know who my girlfriend is?
Barbra Streisand?
Barbra Streisand.
Sand.
Sand, yeah, like sands. Like the ocean, like
Barbra
beaches.
Streisand?
No, like Streisand.
Sand.
As with all of his films, I suspect my admiration will only grow with time and subsequent viewings. Number 4, West Side Story. Not gonna lie, I was kind of dreading this film, generally because remaking an all-time classic is usually a fool's errand, and specifically because director Steven Spielberg and screenwriter Tony Kushner adapting an already problematic film in today's politically and racially overcharged environment seemed akin to navigating a minefield. And so I was both amazed and relieved that 2021's West Side Story not only holds its own, but manages to improve upon the original. It's the iconic songs you know and love, with some slight changes to order and performers that I thought were rather inspired. The dancing is altered, quoting the original while finding new ways to be alive. Once again, the Puerto Ricans handily steal the spotlight. The film is worth watching for the show-stopping America number alone. At the risk of sounding hyperbolic, this is a visual stunner from the first shot to the last, which I can honestly say because it begins and ends with weighty long takes. This is a prime candidate for open and close. Spielberg's eye is captured by his longtime collaborator, cinematographer Janusz Kaminski, is a strong reminder that he's still one of the greatest visual storytellers around. Number 3, Dune. Denis Villeneuve was born to make an accessible and successful adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune, a dense sci-fi fantasy novel that has been defying readers and filmmakers alike since 1965. He was singularly qualified to pull off the kind of epic that we rarely see on the big screen, the likes of which we probably haven't truly tasted since the closing credits rolled on The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King nearly 20 years ago. The only reason this didn't top the list is the part 1 of it all. To compare it again to Peter Jackson's magnum opus, while a trilogy, each of those films had a strong and definitive beginning, middle, and end. The same simply cannot be said for Dune Part 1, as it merely peters out, dropping the audience on the sand for an anticlimactic break in the story.
This is only the beginning.
Here's hoping he can finish the job with the same cinematic ambition and artistry.
Only together can we stand a chance.
Number 2, The Power of the Dog. This is a dauntless and discerning revisionist western that undresses the cowboy prototype to a degree that would make John Wayne roll in his grave and apparently make Sam Elliott shake in his boots.
But what the does this woman from New Zealand know about the American West? And why in the does she shoot this movie in New Zealand and call it Montana?
I'm sorry, he was being a little bit of a bitch. He's not a cowboy, he's an actor.
Stunning cinematography, a ponderous score, and splendid performances across the board. Some of the best work we've seen from Benedict Cumberbatch, Cody Smith-McPhee, Kirsten Dunst, and Jesse Plemons, all of whom are nominated. Jane Campion hadn't made a film in over a decade, but this expertly directed psychodrama puts her back on the front burner.
Sort of a lonesome place out here, Pete, unless you get in the swing of things.
which leads us and leaves us with my number 1, Drive My Car. The story centers on a theater actor and director who leaves Tokyo in the wake of a personal tragedy to stage a multilingual production of Chekhov's Uncle Vanya in Hiroshima. Writer-director Ryusuke Hamaguchi adapted a Haruki Murakami short story into an unassuming 3-hour drama that quietly but effectively captures the grieving process and human perseverance through both art and community. Hidetoshi Nishijima leads a cast of earnest souls collaborating on stage while finding emotional calibration offstage. I first saw Drive My Car at a local art house theater back in December, and I honestly have thought about it every single day since. While it's not as cinematic as something like Dune or West Side Story, it thrives in that theatrical setting, free of distractions, with a sincere audience contemplating together in the dark. I know everyone won't be able to see it under those ideal circumstances, but I encourage anyone to replicate their viewing as best they can. Of all this year's Best Picture nominees, Drive My Car is the one that affected me most deeply, and somehow still feels like I have the most to unpack.
僕の人生と愛はどうしたらいい？
生きていくほかないの。
私の方がおじさんよりずっと不幸かもしれない。それでも私はやけなんか起こさない。だから今毎日とても楽しいです。
And that's my ranking of the 2022 Best Picture nominees. How would you rank these 10 films? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you down there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Cineflect for video essays, film lists, and more.
I got this!
And click that bell next to the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified anytime I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. For Cineflect, I'm JS Lewis. Until next time, watch something good.